Alright, welcome back everyone to another video, and in this one we'll be taking a look at a very famous project called DXVK. Now this has been here for a while, but I really didn't kind of know about it, so maybe I wasn't in the loop, but it's here and it's actually pretty interesting. So what DXVK does is it converts the DX11 calls into Vulkan calls. That means you can actually use Wine to play DX11 games, but instead of converting them to OpenGL, which is not very efficient, you end up converting them to Vulkan, which actually runs pretty good. So it's still in a very early stage, so it's still beta. It hasn't reached the version 1 yet, so it's I think version 6.4 or something, 0.64, but yeah, it works great. There are a few catches here and there, but for the most part, few of the games work really well. Some of the games work good, and some of the games work, and then other games not so much. So we'll take a look at what that is. So first we have to enable and also tell Wine to actually run on DXVK instead of Wine D3D, which does the same thing, but it does for OpenGL, not Vulkan. Let's start with that. I've just downloaded the pre-compiled binaries, and there we go. So you saw the Wine window start for a bit, so we'll just do for the 32-bit ones as well, and there it is. Alright, now let's take a look at Unigine Heaven's benchmark first. So I would added 3 benchmarks. The first one is natively running on Windows, running DirectX 11, same setup, same system, and it scores 1045 with an average FPS of 41, minimum of 7.9, and a max FPS of 93.7. This was in the extreme preset, didn't touch anything else. On natively on Linux running on OpenGL, again same extreme preset, we have a score of almost half, that is 489, average FPS of 19.4, minimum of 6.5, and a maximum of 35.2. Moving on to DXVK on Linux, and this is interesting, it actually scored higher than native Linux run, and it scored lower than the default Windows run because of the overhead and everything else that's in there, but it scored right in the middle, 687, average FPS of 27.3, minimum of 7.3, and maximum of 53.0. So this tells us roughly that if there's a game that runs OpenGL and you run and runs DXVK on the Windows side of things, there is a pretty good chance that it's going to run much better on DXVK rather than running it natively on OpenGL. Again, Vulkan takes care of makes use of multiple threads, multiple cores, and kind of runs really well. So that's that. Let's get to some further decent games and see how all of that looks. So Wine and steam.exe, and you should see the window pop up. So I have a few metrics enabled on the right side of the screen. I have my CPU load right here, it's running htop. I have the GPU load right there, so that's the GPU utilization, and I have the debug information here for Wine as well as VNDK would be on the screen up top. So our Steam has loaded. For some reason doesn't really display any images right there. Can go to the library and you can see I have a few games loaded up there. Bioshock Infinite doesn't really work, sadly. It just loads to the screen. It runs on DXVK, but it doesn't really load all that well. So we'll take a look at that later. Let's start with the game that works the least, and that is Call of Duty. So alright, so it has started up. So as you can see, the FPS for the intro screen is actually pretty okay. I wouldn't expect much more. The CPU usage does go very high if you're running DXVK, because I don't know, just consumes a lot. And again, I'm running on an i3, so it's not as much if you would run on an i5 or an i7. Of course, the GPU utilization hasn't really gone up right now because we are just in the loading screen. Let's escape that and let's see what our settings look like. And you can see I have everything as off. Only render resolution is somewhat okay, but if I run it at this setting, it's actually not going to perform that well. So let's run it at this setting and we'll see how well it does. So in a second you will actually see the FPS jump up to a few hundreds because this is again just a cutscene, and as you can see the GPU utilization isn't much because it doesn't really have to be. And if you're wondering if the audio works, it does. There are reasons why I'm not enabling the audio is because I can get a copy strike, and yeah, I don't want that. So as you can see, FPS is going up to a few hundreds. It has crossed to 200 FPS actually in a while back. Alright, so as you can see, we are in mid 20s. So yeah, I wouldn't really consider it playable, but at least it's working fine. The one issue is that the mouse kind of keeps leaving the screen, so the answer is you run it in a windowed mode. So again, it's running at 1600 with 1600 by 900. Most of the things are on medium. As you can see, it's stuttering a lot, but it's running. That's the point, it's running. The GPU utilization is not very high, but if I go to any further details, I don't think it's going to keep up that well. So I mean, we can try, but the stuttering issue is something that I've seen across the board. You can see my CPU usage is also very high. That's one of the things that can usually put you down. If you have a good enough CPU with DXVK, stuttering improves and everything else runs better. A lot of people have reported that things run better if you are running on a much better CPU. So let's go to settings, graphics, advanced settings, and see if we can turn on a few things. Texture resolution normal, map resolution normal, because we are running at a very low GPU usage. And let's just turn on a few things. And there we are skipping quite a bit for some reason, and we have lost a lot of frames. Our GPU utilization is very minimal, and yeah, so that's kind of the thing, is that if your CPU is strong enough, it can handle DXVK with heavier titles really well, but with the CPU that I have, it's not really running all that well. Again, it's running Vulkan, so of course as many cores as possible, because Vulkan usually kind of relies on multi-threaded operations. So I have no idea what I am doing. I'm right into the enemy's territory because everything's kind of hanging, stuttering really bad. So it's not really hanging, because as you can see, we are touching 50s and actually mid 30s when you are not kind of stuttering a lot, but just the CPU is bottlenecking VXDK a lot. So I mean, that's it for this game. Let's move on to other titles. Alright, starting Steam, and let's look at one of the good Steam titles that run pretty well, and that is Homefront: The Revolution. It's a few years old, but it runs on DirectX 11. It's a neat little game. Performs okay. Again, it's kind of limited by CPU, but let's see how it does. So We'll go to our library, Homefront Revolution, play, and yeah, it starts to run. And again, as you can see, the DXVK debug info is up there, so we are running that. We can also see on the terminal right there, we are running DXVK. There it is, DXVK version 0.64. So let's continue. So again, even in this, most of the settings are medium. I think I've put a few of them at high and a few of them at low, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day it's still bottlenecked by the CPU. The GPU utilization doesn't really go up. So again, the CPU is touching the 80s, the GPU is barely touching the 60s. It's going occasionally to 80s, but yeah, it's not 100%. The GPU is something you want it to be at 100%. And there is definitely a lot of mouse lag, a lot of input lag, which kind of detaches you from the experience. But as far as I'm concerned right now, it's more about the game working, looking good and stuff like that, rather than having a very accurate experience. It's still in beta, and I really like this project, what they're doing with that. You play a game, you barely see a couple of cores touch 100%, but because it's running on Vulkan, it can actually make use of, again, at least like 16 cores, or on an average an 8 core high performance CPU, and it's going to improve the performance a lot. Again, we are in a very heavily in a very heavy environment where there's a lot of UI elements, and the CPU is pinned down, the GPU is barely at anything, so it kind of works, I guess, over the i3. But if you are really into, just get a better CPU. But it's actually a pretty good kind of it's a pretty good solution to gaming on Linux, honestly, if it works this good, if it works this well. A few of the titles do actually work really well, which I'm going to show you in a bit. But I mean, as you can see, it works fine. Just get a better CPU and it will work even better. So at times you can see we are hitting like a mid 40s, which is really nice and smooth. Yeah, but there's just a lot of input lag, huge amount of input lag, a few hundred milliseconds. I'm going to play the next game, which should kind of also explain the input lag. If you can hear my keyboard inputs, I'm pretty sure you are able to. Let's exit this, and we are going to run Need for Speed Rivals, one of the games that actually work pretty well. Alright, let's look at the settings and where we are going to have them. Let's improve the screen resolution to 1600 by 9. I hate motion blur. Lighting quality medium. Let's keep everything at medium or on. Or let's go high, because just because this game defaults to 30 FPS, it really won't go up. That's kind of its internal limitation, but we can live with that. I hope it kept my controls from the last time, because it has a very weird set of default controls for some reason. Alright, there we are. We are at about 27 FPS. So you can see a lot of input lag. We are at about 24, 25 actually. I think I might have put the settings a bit too high. And again, the CPU is being pinned down, but we usually average at about 30. So if the driving is bad, that's because of the weird default controls, nothing to do with me. I've played this game before. Yeah, so it's working fine, actually better than I'd expect other games to work. and so you can definitely see the control lag. I'm pressing the turn key and it just takes a while to turn and straighten out. So press and move, press, move. I can actually speak. So press, move, press, move. You can see on the screen if you're looking close enough. There's a fair bit of control lag, a fair bit of input lag, and that really makes playing this game difficult. Not just challenging, but kind of annoying, I guess. Whoops. Did not mean to go there, but again the CPU is pinned down pretty bad and the GPU is not being utilized as much I would like it to be. So better CPU would definitely mean better performance. And again input lag. Alright, wait, let's see, let's get on a straight road and see how the input lag is. So click, move, click, move, click, move, click, move, and yes, definitely audible input lag, and I'm pretty annoyed by that. But hey, I mean, it performs well. I'm not complaining. And if anything, it's probably my CPU that's kind of holding it back, as I've said. So I guess that's about it. So I mean, I'm not really expecting a whole lot in terms of CPU optimization. You are technically, I don't know how to put it, but virtualizing DX11 on a Vulkan platform, and that I'm assuming that has to take that much amount of CPU compute power, and so I'm pretty happy with it. Even on an i3 it's running this good. But if there was something done with the input lag issue, and if there was some improvement in getting other games to work, I know it's in beta, but getting a few other games to work really well. The one issue that I really need to tell everyone is you cannot play multiplayer games with this at all, because if you do, you will get banned. Most of the multiplayer games actually check if you are modifying the DirectX 11 libraries, and if you do, you end up in trouble. They permanently ban you, and they kind of take strict actions, and this is what we are exactly doing here. We are modifying the DX11 binaries, and yeah, so don't play multiplayer. As long as you want to play single player on this, it's fine. And as you would have seen, I haven't tested any multiplayer, and the NFS version that I am running is running offline. I have kind of removed the networking from the Wine, so it's not really working. So it tries to log into Origin and then just runs on an offline mode, more or less. So I guess that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. It's actually looking really good for gaming on Linux if this project matures, and then we don't really have to worry about a game being running by default on Windows and has Windows only or DirectX 11 only support. I think the next couple of steps for developers and other people who are in the Linux gaming industry to take is to implement this on Steam directly. So what you can do is just launch the game from Steam, and it by default launches in a Wine and DXVK environment and just runs from there. So I am actually going to I think resolution doesn't really take a hit on the CPU. Let's see if that is the case, because I am going to go full 1080p and see how that works out to be. So screen resolution, let's go to full 1080p and apply. So again, I have a ultra wide monitor, so that's how 1080p looks, and let's see if that works. So come on, kind of is about the same, a few frames less if I had to guess, but not a whole lot of difference. My CPU is still pinned down pretty much just as before. So let's go ahead and take it completely ultra wide and see how that looks. I'm assuming it will be pretty bad, but let's see. So let's go there. Let's go to game settings and resolution to ultra wide, apply, and resume game. I mean, it's playable. Usually racing games, I mean, if you're running at a few less frames, it's okay, but right now I'm feeling a lot of stuttering and a lot of, we have actually moved down multiple frames actually, so it's now averaging at around 20, and earlier it was like 25 to 30. So right now you can really feel that it's kind of cutting down, and I'm sure the GPU won't be as much pinned down, but CPU would be a lot pinned down. So I am in a pursuit for some reason. Come on, I'm not going to try to get away right now. So let's just take a quick look at the CPU and GPU. So our CPU is pinned down, our GPU is at 54 or something. So again, not a whole lot doing with the performance of the GPU. It's just like, it's kind of CPU intensive, and it's sad that it is. But that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. It's looking pretty good, and I will see you in the next one. A few more interesting videos coming your way throughout the week. And of course, follow me on social platforms, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. I'll leave everything in the description, in the intro, in the outro.